Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Wake on up. Wake on up. It's that time, baby. Wake on up. It's October the 9th. It is a Monday. Unc is here. Is in the house. Hey, we've got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to discuss. And this is the day. If there's ever a day you need to get something off your chest, today is absolutely that day. Much to discuss. So come on in, bring that same energy. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see no down faces. I don't want to hear no depression. I don't want to hear none of that. You know what Unc did yesterday? Just gonna make sure I had a good time. Went out to Steiner Ranch Steakhouse last night. We had myself some steak, boy. Looky here, what is that? A Japanese? What is it? Wagyu or something like that? Woo-wee, that thing was good. That thing was amazing. But boy, let me tell you what the mistake that Unc made last night. I'm just gonna give you guys some advice. When you try to do that, that flex, and you're like, man, I'm not even gonna look at the price. And you just, I'll do market price, whatever it is. I got that bill. I was like, oh, I had to keep that same energy, boy. I was like, yeah, snap. Well, man, I had a good time last night, man. And I'm going to have a great time with you guys today. And again, we're going to recap everything from the Texas OU game, the Red River game from this past weekend. Get your thoughts, get your comments. We're still going to have Overreaction Monday if there ever was a time to have an overreaction. Today is the day for Overreaction Monday. So, yeah, we got that coming. Going to be a little bit of a shorter show because Steve Sarkisian's a bye week. But Steve Sarkisian is still addressing the media. He'll address the media at 11 o'clock today. You guys will do the over or the under as far as what time that one's going to be. We'll figure that out. We'll set a line, and then we'll go from there. But Steve Sarkisian will be speaking and addressing the media today. So I'll be here for about like 2 hours or so today, and then be here for the rest of the week. And we also got some things going, flying out Wednesday. Got some things I'm flying out to, going down to Mexico. So I'll be trying to do, hopefully, the show from Thursday and Friday if the internet allows. But that's kind of the goal for this upcoming week. So can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. As we always do. Always want to recognize some of the people who get in here early. And by the way, it's the Old Fashioned Sports Show. I'm your host, Anwar Richardson. Always want to recognize the people that get in here early. So what's going on to SEC Hook'em? Congratulations on being numero uno today. Nino season is saying good morning to you. Good morning. Hey, Unc, can't wait for the show. Been mad since the game. Cost me $20. I had to buy a new remote after I threw it against the door. All right, I need a little bit controlled here. I need you not to be breaking things. All right, that's not a good sign. I don't need you throwing things, punching walls. You must be young, Nino season. Like back in the day, throw stuff. Now you just got to pour yourself a little drink and go to sleep. Or get yourself some Rogue products, and that'll help you as well. Soda 806 is in the house. Zio_V, my favorite Hennessy bottles in the house. Good morning to you, Blake Winfrey. Hope the family's doing well. Money B was good with you. Good fam. Always good to see you on a Monday here. Money B, I'll be back at the airport on Wednesday. You going to be at the airport on Wednesday? I'll be there. Agencies in here. Devin Taylor. We got a lot to talk about. Absolutely. DWD. Good to see you. Big Texas in the house. Kobe's in the house. Rodolfo is in the house. Good morning, young buck. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had. I hope you had celebrating your birthday all throughout the weekend. I know Saturday probably was a little bit of a ruin for that one, Rodolfo, but that's all right. You got another days here. David's in here. Arthur's in here. Chris Bennett, the original OG, is in the house. Good morning to you, Texas Mama. Still and always hook 'em. You always say that's damn right. Stay on your porch. I'll go to your porch, man. I got a lot to address as relates to that Texas Mama, and that has nothing to do with you. But we're going to talk to the Texas fans out there today. But Retmore 77, Mike Harges is in the house, my homie, right there. Ryan Foster's in here. The Disbanded Brotherhood. Just a dot. Okay. Anthony's in the house. It's just a dot. Just I'm here. Just let you everyone know that's here. All right, this Bandit Brotherhood. Calvin Gilroy is here. Michael Gonzalez is here. Sandman is here. Sandman 23. Justin, salute to you, my friend. Salute to you, fam. Good to see you. Let's see. I'm already talking there. Jay Ward. Well, tells me Jay Ward. I won't say anything too nice today. Let's see. JD Legacy is in the house. I want to make sure I address everybody else in the next couple of minutes. Jamie Gutierrez, give us more hope, Anwar. I got you. Man. Like, listen, this is what you're here for. David Scott is here. Quentin's in here. What's up, Q? Q Dog. Good to see you. Show Crew TV is in the house. The Dax is in here. Cotton is in here. Good morning to you, Young Buck. Good to see you as always. Looks like is it Terrell Robertson? What to do, Terrell? I want to make sure I'm saying it correct, but it looks like that's Terrell. But Terrell Robertson, what to do, homeboy? Good to see you. Darian is in the house as well. Michael Gooseby, what's going on, man? Gooseby, that's Trevor Gooseby's daddy. If you guys don't know Trevor Gooseby on the offensive line, your backup left tackle is in the house. Sorry we couldn't get together. Man, I had a lot of things going on my plate on that Friday, but you got to let me know how the kid did on Friday night, how that thing went, as well as a lot of parents who had kids that were playing on Friday night and then had to get into the game on Saturday, so didn't get a chance to really enjoy all the festivities. A little dab would do you. Damn, $3,200 on tickets. Woo wee! Ouch. Is damn right if you spent that kind of cash. Stoopsified is in the house. Good morning to you, Stoopsified. And Money B is in the house as well. We got a lot to discuss. We got a lot of things that I get into. Good morning to you, Thumper, as well. And let's get into this thing. I'm going to bring it real quick. The first portion of the show is brought to you by my main man, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. If you're looking for a home in the DFW area, do not have to look any further than Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's got the man with the master plan, looking to buy, looking to sell. You got that QR code, boop, boop, hit him. You're good to go. He's got you covered. Now, he predicted 12-0, so clearly he's wrong. I gave him props for 5 weeks. I was giving him props for 5 weeks. He predicted 12-0. Anyway, 12-0 is not gonna happen. So he needs to revive his. He needs to give us a revitalized picks for right now. But nonetheless, he still is a good friend. He still does his picks, and he sent me, Aaron. You appreciate this. He sent me the screenshot. I don't know if he sent it to you or not, but of the people who I forget who picks on game day, and that person's record was worse than his. So he's like, this guy gets paid to do these predictions, and look at him. So I think he's taking it real personal when people rip his picks, and I love it because I think it's hilarious to me. But look up Eric Sells Homes, DFW. My main man has got you covered, and check him out. Hold on, I'm gonna make sure, just in case I get any notifications during the show, I want to make sure I take my auto lock off so I can get everything here. Let's do it. Let's get into this game. Let's talk about this thing. And I really want to kind of start with I want to start in a particular area. The thing about this show, and the thing I always strive to be in this show is that, I want to be a buck with you guys. I want to be honest with you guys. And the thing is, I think the thing you'll appreciate about this show is I'm never going to be that person that is too high or too low. But I'm never going to be that person that's going to piss on your leg and tell you that it's raining. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm about. That's none of that. And the thing is about this show, sometimes when you go to the fanboy stuff and the fanboy sites and all that kind of stuff, no disrespect to them, but you're not going to get the real. You're not going to get that realness that you deserve. And so because of that, you're going to get the realness that you deserve. And I'm going to start with something that that has bugged me a little bit over this weekend, and it's super if I don't appreciate what I'm about to say, but it's bugged me over this weekend, but I need to address it to you guys a lot of you guys are Longhorn fans. There's some OU fans that are in here. They were definitely in the chat on Saturday night. But you know what? Can I say something? I'm going to start with this. It is okay. It is okay to say that Oklahoma was the better team on Saturday. I have been a little bit sick and tired of some of the excuses that I have heard over the weekend. And I've been a little bit sick and tired and annoyed of the people rationalizing the loss, okay, and being upset about a couple of different things. First and foremost, let's start with this. Let's just be quick. Let's just be clear. Let's just start with here. Everybody had fun with 49-0. For nearly a year, everybody had fun with 49-0. How many times did I reference this? How many times? I had fun with it. It was a fun little joke, and you've been able to hang it over OU's head for damn near a year. So guess what? When they talk their smack and they coming back at you and they giving it back hard to you, it is what it is. To the victor goes the spoils, man. To the victor goes the spoils. So you know what? I know you don't appreciate it. You don't like it. OU fans are in the chat. They're talking their smack. It is what it is, man. You got to be able to take that L. And what I've seen for too many Texas fans this weekend has been the inability to take an L. It was real cool when Sam Ehlinger was told to sell out to Kyler Murray, right? Take that L, take that L. And now all of a sudden the L happens and none of you guys can't take the L. It's okay to say that Oklahoma was the better team on Saturday. And I want to hear no excuse making from anybody. I don't want to hear it. Got text messages over the weekend. Man, well, those referees, they jobbed us, man. Like, hey, man, like, why did they call the face mask on Xavier Worthy, blah, 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 blah. Stop all that crap, man. If you get the ball on the 1 yard line, first and goal, and you can't score, you don't deserve to win, period. I don't want to hear no excuses. I'm not here for that, man. I'm not. You get the ball on the 1 yard line and you can't run it in on first and goal. It is what it is. Take the L. You don't deserve to win. Don't bitch about, and I know I don't like to cuss. I know we got a lot of kids that listen to it. Just ignore me. That was his uncle on a little bit of a rant. Sorry for the little children that are out there. Good morning to you, Jared. But sorry. I apologize, parents. I won't do it again. I know you got kids in the car. But I want to hear about this. That is when we started talking about the strength of this team being the offensive line. Well, then guess what? That's when that offensive line has to be a strength. It is what it is. And OU, from a defensive line standpoint and from a defensive standpoint, stood up. They capitalized. And they made sure Texas didn't score. You can't score on 4 downs. Hey, that L is supposed to happen. Well, what about the interceptions and all those other kind of things? If that didn't happen, if this didn't happen, if what did I say? If my uncle didn't have 2 balls, he'd be my aunt. There's a lot of ifs in life, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the interceptions happened. It didn't kill Texas. It didn't help, but it didn't kill Texas when it was all said and done. You still had an opportunity. Oh, what about the referees? And the referees didn't call certain things, blah, 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 blah. Cry me a damn river, man. At the end of the day, Texas took a lead. And they had the lead with less than 2 minutes left. And all that had to be done is not give up a score. And instead, Texas gives up a touchdown. Not even a field goal where you can rationalize in your head, like, well, they only went like 40 yards and kicked a little field goal, this and that. They scored a TD. TD. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear anything. Worry about the things you can control. Worry about the things you can't control. And there were a lot of things that were within the control of Texas that OU was able to get and capitalize on, and they end up with the W. Period. So you know what? You got to take that loss. Gotta take it. They're gonna talk trash. Yep. They're gonna talk trash to you. Yep. Are they gonna talk trash and hit me on those Twitter streets? Yep. You know what you gotta do? Take the L. I heard so. Oh, you know what? You know when it's all said and done, it took Oklahoma's A game to beat us when we were on our C game. I mean, look at that. What rationale? How does that make you feel better? First of all, that doesn't even make sense. Don't even make sense. No disrespect to the people who were saying it over the weekend. But at the end of the day, sometimes a team makes you play your C game. Sometimes they bring you down. Sometimes because they're better. It just is what it is. It wasn't like, oh man, like you wasn't pumped up for the game. It's a Texas OU game. Stop that. Texas brought the A game. They tried to bring the A game. It just wasn't better than Oklahoma's A game. This is what it is. And so now it's about Texas finding a way to fix the things that need to be fixed in areas that we hadn't seen. So I do have room for optimism. I told you guys before this game, when you watch this show, I said, win or lose, I said these two teams are going to play each other twice this year. If you remember that, I said it all last week. So giving OU their props and then giving Texas their props as well. There's nothing. So let's go from a totality standpoint, okay? Let's go from a totality standpoint. And yes, 100%. You guys want to do that? Let's do it. I was 100% wrong about OU. 100% wrong. Could not. When I say as wrong as two left feet, as wrong as two left feet. I thought that Texas would win by double digits. Be honest with you. I told you that. I didn't think OU was holding anything. Be honest with you. I didn't think they could mess with this Texas team. I felt like I had seen enough from this Texas team to believe in my heart of hearts that Texas was going to go out and run OU out of the stadium. And I could not have been more wrong. Listen, I've been wrong before. I've been married twice. So clearly I've been wrong. Clearly I've been wrong. And I was wrong on this case. I was wrong about Brett Venables as a coach. 100% wrong. 100% wrong. I was right on him as a recruiter now. Definitely right on him as a recruiter. I know I've been giving his props as far as recruiting is concerned. But as far as coaching, 100% was wrong. Wrong about Dylan Gabriel. Wrong about OU in totality. I will sit here and tell you and man up 100%. That's on me. Didn't see it coming. Didn't see it. And I could have seen a close victory. I still saw a close victory. But the loss didn't see coming. Did not see that. I said on here, Texas brings their A game. What I say? Texas brings their A game, and whoever else they face with throughout the year, they won't lose a game this season. In Texas, I feel like they brought the A game, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough. Now, did that mean they made mistakes? They made a whole lot of mistakes. We're gonna get into that in a second. They made mistakes. There definitely was that. But I'll start off by giving OU their props. And it's okay. Guess what? My property taxes and your property taxes won't go up if you just give OU their props. I promise you. I promise you that your skin is not going to, if I make your skin crawl, it's not going to fall off the bone, right? The meat's not going to fall off the bone. Like, nothing bad is going to happen by saying, you know what? He was better than I thought. 100%. And yes, OU deserve the props. Sorry, Jay Ward. It is what it is. It is what it is. And I won't say he's a nice guy, a nice coach. But guess what? It's where I'm at as well. It's one game. And that's where I'm at right now. It is absolutely one game. One game. And so here's where the conversation goes, and here's where we go as far as reshaping the thinking. Okay? As far as all the talk about national titles and CFP and all the other type of stuff, cut that. I'm done. We're done. Don't bring it to me. We're not talking about it. It's a wrap. All that. Oh, well, Texas wins out and blah, blah, blah. These other. Stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Stop it. Stop it. Go stop you in your tracks right there. The goal, what you have to start thinking about, reshaping your thinking, all that kind of stuff. To talk about that was cool. But it was all good just a week ago, as the lyric says. It was all good just a week ago. But that's not the conversation right now. The conversation right now is getting Texas to Arlington. That's where you're at. That's where your focus is at. Everything else, all that other stuff, nope. That's for everybody else. That ain't for you right now. Not right now. Now, you went out Longhorns went out. Okay, maybe put that back on the table. But for right now, it was cool. It was a cool conversation. That's not the conversation right now. The conversation is there's 6 games left in the regular season. How do you make the most and capitalize off these next 6 games? Because here's the one thing you can't do. I can tell you this. You can't lose another game in the Big 12. You cannot do that. Because if you lose another game in the Big 12, now you got to start doing that funny math that you don't want to do. Because now you lose a tiebreaker against OU. So OU's got a cushion if something happens. And then somebody else has got that thing on you. And now all of a sudden, I've seen that scenario happen. And then all of a sudden, yes, all of a sudden we're back in San Antonio again. I like San Antonio. San Antonio cool. But I can go to San Antonio for personal reasons. I don't like going to San Antonio for business. You know what I'm saying? So where I am with this thing, when it's all said and done, and we'll recap the game in a second, but where I'm at in it with this whole situation is this. You give OU their props. You understand that thing happened, and I understand a loss to Oklahoma. And one of the things I wrote about, it feels like 4 losses in one day. It's like going to, if your kid play AAU basketball, Kiki, if he's interstate Kiki, if he's in there, he'll understand this, what I'm referring to. But your kid plays AAU basketball and you play like two games or maybe 3 in a day and you lose all of them. It's just like, golly, Lord have mercy. Why be in Houston getting drugged like this? That'll happen. But the thing is, and I feel like where you should be at this point is understanding is that Texas is not done. Texas is not done by any stretch of the imagination. There's no part of you that should look at this thing and say to yourself, oh man, it's a wrap. It's a 4-point loss. 4-point loss. And again, everybody listen. OU fans coming here in the chat, they're going to say the Boomer Sooner. Hey, to the victor goes the spoils, man. They should be able to shine. Because guess what? You would be saying the same thing if it was roles in reverse. So you know what? It is what it is. Take that L. Take that L. Gotta take it. Gotta take it. People going to talk crap to me. Hey, still. But yeah, Sark after dark. You still don't. It's a 4-point loss. It's a 4-point loss. And so here's what I made 5 some points for you guys to consider. I wrote about this on Sunday. And I'll get into it right now. Let me see. Opinion Sports Show. One thing you should know about me: I'm very critical of my favorite teams. OU is better than you gave it credit. You should listen and take what I'm saying seriously. I don't have to take what you're saying seriously. I can take what I saw seriously. Opinion Sports Show is that, and by the way, Opinion Sports Show. You might be late to the show. I've already admitted that I was 100% wrong. So it's not necessarily, I don't mean that disrespect. This is just me and you talking. It's not about you telling me something. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there. I've already said, hey, OU better than I thought. 100%. To the victor goes the spoils. I get it. But if you're a Texas fan, here's where you got to look at it. 4-point loss. That's all it is. Wasn't a blowout. 17-21. You all of a sudden, where do you go from now? It was a 4-point loss with the opportunity to win at the end. So calm down. Calm down. Just breathe for a second. It feels worse because it's your rival, right? Because it's your rival. But if you had taken OU off the helmet and put somebody else on there, Alabama or something like that, you say, all right, you would understand that, right? Now, let's look at why I would tell you, don't get discouraged. Don't be upset about it. And understand that Texas still has the ability to be in Arlington and still has the opportunity outside to achieve some bigger picture goals. But the main thing is you got to get to Arlington, right? That's the absolute main thing. You got to get there. Well, you look at the schedule in the remaining 6 games that are left. Houston, BYU, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech. All right. Right now, Texas will face 2 teams who currently have winning records at this moment. Those two teams are BYU and Kansas State. And guess what? Both of those games will be here in Austin. Okay? Both of those games are here in Austin. So there you go. You start feeling good about there's 6 games. You feel good. You should feel good about the Houston game. You feel good that you have BYU, Kansas State back-to-back home games. You're at TCU, which is a 3-3 team. You're at Iowa State, which is a 3-3 team, and then Texas Tech is here at home, right? So you at that point you say to yourself, all right, the schedule isn't as daunting. There should not be a team that you face for the rest of the season that is as good as the Oklahoma team. It shouldn't. There isn't. It's not like that, right? So you understand that is there. You know, you and I don't want to go to that all your goals are still ahead of us thing, because that's usually one of the things I wrote from Sundays. Like there's usually like a check box that you go from like having high hopes to having like low hopes, right? It starts with, you're competing for a championship, right? And then it goes to then a loss, a couple of happens. You're like, all our goals are still ahead of us, right? And then it goes down to a couple more losses. Like, well, I got to get the seniors to a bowl game. We're not at we got to get these seniors to a bowl game state, okay? That's the good part. You're not there. If we were at we got to get these seniors to a bowl game, then I'd tell you, man, this is a bull crap. We're not there. It's one game. It's a 4-point loss against your rival, which makes it feel like it was a 25-point loss. And we're not there. Like one of the things I wrote was like, no one's saying at this moment, man, we gotta get Christian Jones. We gotta get him to a bowl game. We gotta get Jordan Whittington to a bowl game. None of those things to that effect. So when we acknowledge and we take the acknowledgement portion of it, right? Texas, now here's the back, right? And here's the back, okay? Texas gave up 486 yards of offense against Oklahoma, which, holy crap, that was, what the hell? And Dylan Gabriel was responsible for 398 of that, by the way, of those offensive yards. 285 rushing, 285 passing yards, 113 of rushing yards. By the way, I have that wrong in my story. I need to go ahead and fix that one. So that in itself, and Dylan Gabriel, by the way, better than advertised. Better than advertised. All those stats put up about Dylan Gabriel versus elite competition, all those things were true. But when it was all said and done, Dylan Gabriel balled out. Biggest game of his career, Dylan Gabriel showed up. He is now officially an Oklahoma legend. Can do no wrong. He will be able to go back to every game for the rest of his life and be an Oklahoma legend for what he did. And to the victor goes to spoil. He absolutely did the damn thing. But I'm going to tell you about this. If I see more performances from that defense like that, I'll hit the panic button. I'll tell you, you might want to start to worry about this. One game, I'm not going to hit the panic button at this moment. At this moment, one game. I will lean on the 5-game sample that I saw before I overreact to the 1-game thing. Now, you start showing me this more and more after the bye, all of a sudden I'm going to say, oh, what's going on, PK? What's going on with this defense? What has happened? But right now, I'm going to say to myself, I have seen Texas be more successful in this season than I've seen them be failures in this season. So because of that, all right, I'm going to give you this one. I'll give you this one. That will be your mulligan. This Texas OU will be your mulligan. I'll give you the rivalry game and all this other kind of stuff. All that. I'll give you that. But I don't want to see that again. But I no stretch of imagination. I want to see that again. John Hendricks, you're in the super chat. Saying to yourself, Unc, you're still standing on your porch, but dang. I'm gonna think it's a dang. You don't see it. You don't see John Hendrick in the super chat. I see a $2 super chat on my end. Actually, I'll put it up for you. That's kind of weird. So Yeah, so right there is where that is. Yes, super chat, but yeah, you're gonna stand on your point. You still don't see it on your end, Aaron? I don't know what's going on then. That's a kind of here we are. And then John Hendricks also comes back in the super chat as well, and he says, here another one, $2 super chat goes, is this the same old Texas? John, I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to say that. I'm not gonna. This is where I'm at. You don't. I wouldn't panic or overact after one game. After one game, I think that's your sample size, and this is what I'm trying to get at. Your sample size has been this team is better than it has been. So I'm not ready right now, John, to say to at this moment, oh snap, like this is the same old Texas, back to normal, like all that. No. Give it a second, because let's look at this for a second. Texas had 527 offensive yards on Saturday. 527. So be realistic. Let's not act like and sit here and lie to ourselves and say, hey, OU dominated Texas. It was 527 yards of offense that they had. It wasn't like this defense was shutting down Texas or anything to that effect. They got the 2 interceptions at the beginning, which you damn near, hey, that happened. But overall, I look at it, and if you tell me that Texas is going to produce 500 yards of offense from now until for the remainder of the season, I'll tell you that Texas is going to win more games than they lose. If you tell me they're going to do that against Houston and BYU and K-State and TCU and Iowa State, and you tell me Texas Tech, I'm going to tell you you should be feel pretty good about the results that are going to happen. The interceptions did happen with Quinn, but again, how many of that is really did you put on him, and how many was it from his receiver's standpoint? And at the end of the day, he ends up completing 31 of 37 passes, 346, a touchdown. The fumble is probably something that you could say, that one probably gets down a little bit quicker. But nonetheless, it wasn't like Quinn looked overmatched. Quinn looked pretty good throughout most of the game. So I don't look at it and say to myself, oh, man, now how do you fix that? Jonathan Brooks still has another 100-yard game. Now, I think there's an argument to be made that Jonathan Brooks should be getting the majority of touches going forward, should be the bell cow. And there's an argument to be made that, hey, C.J. Baxter may be ready at some point. But right now, lean on Brooks for right now. That Baxter gets a couple of carries, but Brooks should be that guy. When I look at it, I look at a game, you guys, all of last week, and really all this season, it's asking me about Jordan Whittington. Why not more Jonte Cook? Give us a little bit more, less of Jordan Whittington. And at the end of the day, Jordan Whittington leads the team with 10 receptions for $115. The fatal blow is probably he doesn't get into that in the end zone. If he gets in the end zone, maybe something's different. But when I tell you about the ifs, I don't play those games. I don't like to play the if game, right? But if you're telling me, hey, you're going to see more Jordan Whittington this season, if you tell me you give me more Jonathan Brooks this season, if you tell me Quinn continues to play the way that Quinn played, that we saw him there, if you tell me that the offense is going to put up the numbers that they played, I feel you've got to feel pretty good about that. Now, the thing you just don't feel good about today is the defense. Because I get the only number that really matters is the scoreboard. And Texas lost. So I give you all the stats in the world that I want to. At the end of the day, scoreboard is what it is. Hey, OU scored more points. So there is that. But right now, as we sit on October the 9th, Texas fan, and even if you're an OU fan that's in here, and we're having fair and objective conversations, and we're being a buck here, and not BSing anything. Do you see it today? Today, you see Texas losing 3 more games. If you're a Texas fan, even if you're an OU fan, because I've given you your props, I've given you your flowers. Are you saying to me you would think Texas is going to lose 3 games? You see 2 more losses on the schedule? I'm just being real. Not take it all. Take whatever aside. Is it? I don't see 2 losses. I'm not looking at a team that I'm looking at. You think 9-3 now? That's what you asked me. Is it the same old Texas? Nah, I'm not ready to say all that. I'm ready to go there. Buck Wild, do you see it in the super chats, Aaron? Okay, you're back on. All right, let's do that. Buck Wild asked me a question. Anwar, can you just tell me why Sark didn't go for the first down or 3rd and 6? Why did it seem like he seemed like a scared play call? I mean, I can't get you into his head as far as certain things that he was doing as far as why did he not go on 3rd and 6. Looked like he's playing for the field goal. I get it, field position, all those kind of things. There's a lot of questions that'll be had. Buck Wild, another question is going to be time management at that point. Why not try to kill a little bit more time off the clock? There's some questions to be had as far as that is concerned. Questions to be had as far as the play call perspective. Right now, I don't have those answers. I'm sure Sark will probably look at it a little bit differently when it's all said and done. But there is, when you getting a sack, obviously on second down doesn't help a lot of different things. There's a lot of different things that were at play. Give me the other one as well on the super chat is concerned. James S. Anwar, OU played cleaner, more physical, and just better on Saturday. They're not the better overall team. Best team doesn't always win in this game. James, I like everything you said. Wordplay on the last one when you say they're not the better overall team. Best team doesn't always win in this game. I mean, I guess to a certain degree, but I don't know. I mean, OU's 6-0. I mean, OU's undefeated. So I don't know. Like, that's a tough one for me, James, because technically shouldn't the better team win? I mean, I don't know how you quantify who is or who isn't the better team. Like, I don't know what the variables would be that you measure who is the better team. Like, usually I measure the better team by what's the scoreboard to like, that's just me. I get what you're trying to say from an overall standpoint, but then to me, James, the better team should win. And I'm just not I can't rationalize and say to myself, James, that I don't think that I can't say to I guess you can want to say Texas is the better team. I just don't know how do you quantify that? By what variables would you measure that? That's why I don't. Based on what? Based off the win against Alabama? I mean, I don't know. To me, the better team won on Saturday. Just what it is. Could this team be better? Sure, but I mean, Dylan Gabriel was a good quarterback on Saturday. So I think if Texas is a better team, Texas wins. But Texas wasn't a better team, so I don't think so. Let's do this right now, Aaron. Let's show something for Specs for those who need to get themselves a little drink and feel a little bit better about themselves. Specs has got you covered. If there was a day you need to go to Specs to make it be this Monday, go ahead, Aaron.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Rhett. More upsets when it exists, that the better team always wins. I mean, then fine. Oh, if you want to say we'll compromise on it, then we'll say OU was a better team that day. But then Alabama can say that now about what Texas, right? Alabama can say they were the better team. Just Texas was the better team that day. You see how that works, right? Like now, because now, how would you feel if Alabama's like we're a better team than Texas? Look at they lost to Alabama said they lost to OU. We're a better team. They just got us on that day, but we're a better team. It's just wordplay. I know it's a little bit of semantics when it's all said and done. But at the end of the day, how I look at it, guys, is this. I don't see 2 more losses from this team. I don't think we're looking at a 9-3 team. I don't think we're looking at an 8-4 team. I think you're looking at a team that 6 more games still should be able to win the next 6. The defensive things should be corrected. I think this defense has played well throughout the year, and I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater and now over sudden overreact and say, "Oh my God, this thing, whatever it is, what it is." Like, no, I want to say, all right, that thing happened. I'll give yourself a week to refocus, readjust, and get back to where you need to be, which is ultimately meeting Oklahoma back in the championship game, right? And I think Oklahoma is good enough to get there. What is OU schedule for the rest of the year? Because I know OU is going into a bye. Let me look at OU schedule for a second. There shouldn't be a team that's on OU schedule that is as tough as Texas. So OU should be able, based off of, especially if they play that brand of football. And this is one thing I kept telling you guys. They got UCF, Kansas, at Kansas, tough little game there. At Oklahoma State, West Virginia, at BYU, TCU. I mean, they've got a tough little schedule there. The thing I kept telling you guys about Oklahoma when you guys were telling me, like, hey, well, Oklahoma hasn't played anybody. I was like, look, you beating the teams, beating them down the way you're supposed to. Like, you got to give them some credit and some props for that. They just ended up being a little bit better than expected. But at the end of the day, Texas should still be there. I think Texas still has the ability to be there. Again, I know it hurts. I know it stings. I know it sucks. I know it's all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, what Texas needs to do is focus in on, hey, you can't let one loss beat you twice. Find a way to get the second W, right? And then go on from there. So, all right, that happened. Go into the bye week, figure it out, get Ryan Watts healthy, get everybody else healthy, and then figure out what happened on the offensive line. Because I'll be honest with you, as much as we pumped up this offensive line, there's been times this season when this offensive line has been exposed. Rice happened, we excuse it. Wyoming happened, we excuse it because we saw Alabama. But there's been times when this offensive line has been inconsistent. And that cannot be a thing going forward because, yes, that defensive line for Oklahoma did have some success. And way more success than what should have happened for all the recruiting and for all the much that as we have applauded this offensive line. That kind of performance cannot be duplicated, nor should it be replicated at all this season. John Hendricks is back in the super chat. So, John, where you at? Let's see what you got for me. John Hendricks wants to know, could you ask Sark, why the hell do the DBs play 5 yards off the receivers, especially in the last drive? It's been 3 years and it has not changed. I mean, I can change. How about I change around the wording for you? How about I not word it that way, but I can word it in the way where, yes, I understand what you're saying. And obviously being able to have that success. I mean, it's the simple thought process, which is, you've got more DBs and receivers on the field. You should be able to have a little bit more success than there. And, if you play in press, you play man, you don't want a guy to get past you. The problem is those guys got past him anyway. So, and Dylan Gabriel made the throws. And so those things happen as well. I can ask about certain things, but I'll just have to reword it, John. And I got to think, the other thing, John, to be honest with you, I want to get one question. So when I do have my one question, I do have to make it good. And I'll get James' super chat in before I bring in Ketch. So James, with his super chat, he goes, so the Charlie and Herman teams that beat OU were better overall than OU those years. Pretty sure those OU teams went to the playoffs. Yeah, I get. That's referring to the whole comment where and James, I'm not. My struggle is just us saying right now Texas is the better team than OU. I just don't know how you quantify that as well. Yes, they have those moments, but to me, the easier thing and the more genuine thing is to say is that on Saturday, OU was better, and OU obviously appears to be better than Texas at this moment. And then you have to go in and readjust your whole thoughts and the expectations. But I can't be that person that comes in here and just tells you, oh, no, well, Texas is the better team. I don't know how I say that with a straight face after a loss. That to me is being disingenuous. I can't do that. I don't think Ketch would do that. There's other people can do that. I just can't find myself doing that at this moment. Let me do this. Ketch, allow me. I want to get a protein drink. So let's do a quick break, and then as soon as we come back, let me bring in my main man Jeff Ketchum, and then it's time for Overreaction Monday. You are not going to want to miss what both of us have to say.
This Orange Bloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the best recruits from the Charlie Strong era, wide receiver Devin Duvernay. Duvernay was one of the top prospects that the Longhorns signed in the 2016 recruiting class, but his pathway to the Longhorns was as unconventional as anyone in that class or almost any other. The number 52 overall player in the country, number 5 player in the state of Texas, and number 8 wide receiver in the country per Rivals, the high 4-star super blue chip had one doozy of a recruitment. Before he attended a Texas Junior Day in February of 2015, he told Orange Bloods' Jason Sukumel that the Longhorns were front and center in his recruitment. Quote, "They're in it. I like Texas. Grew up liking Texas," Duvernay said. "When I've been there, I like them. With the new staff, I like what they're doing. I think the program will be back pretty soon." Yet Baylor, the first school to actually offer Duvernay a scholarship, was always a school that had his attention. It also had his brother Donovan's attention as well, as he made the jump to commit to Baylor in September of 2015. 2 months later, Devin joined him, choosing the Bears over Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. That's right, no Texas among his initial group of finalists. That was pretty much that for Duvernay, as he signed in February of 2016 with the Bears. But Duvernay decided to explore other options after a sexual assault scandal surrounding the Baylor program and the subsequent firing of head coach Art Briles. It was later discovered that Duvernay's national letter of intent was never properly submitted by Baylor, making him immediately open to other programs. After not having the Longhorns among his original finalists, Duvernay signed with the Longhorns in June of 2016. And once Baylor released his brother, he also joined the Longhorns' 2016 recruiting class. When it was all said and done, Baylor's loss turned out to be one hell of a gain for the Texas football program, who added one of the best receivers in school history.
Let us get Overreaction Monday started. Let us bring in Jeff Ketchum. Where are you at, Jeff? How are you, and good morning?
I'm good, man. How are you doing on this chillier Monday morning? We finally, it feels like, broke out of the summer.
It's always, Texas OU weekend's always a weekend where you usually feel like you got to bring a jacket out. Like it is what it is. And I finally feel like we can kiss 110, 114 goodbye and actually, like,
fingers crossed.
I can't, golly, global warming. They've been killing us, Ketch. I just want to make sure before we get too that far down the road, rogueshop.com. I want to mention, obviously, the partner, our guy, Richard. What can you tell everybody about Rogue Shop and the Rogue products and the Texas fans who may need to hit a little bit of some of that right now?
Well, it's real simple. Rogueshop.com will make your day better. Use that promo code OrangeBloods. They've got products that can aid you in a number of ways. And sometimes just feeling a little bit better or sometimes taking the edge off is just enough. Again, Rogueshop.com, promo code OrangeBloods. Just go to the website. Check it out. Check out the products. See what they have. Find out what you think might work best for you. Everything's on the up and up. Everything is legal. And everybody I know that has gone to rogueshop.com and invested a little bit of time and a little bit of money has come away very, very happy.
Ketch, Colin has a super chat that's in here, and this might be a good way for us to kind of start off Overreaction Monday, because he says, I don't see why everyone is freaking out. It was a 4-point loss with 15 seconds left. It's hard to overcome 4 turnovers, 1 turnover or downs against a good team. You haven't turned the ball over like that. Ketch, we're a couple of days removed from the game itself. Is it just as simple as, hey, Did loss happen, and it happened against Oklahoma, and one loss against Oklahoma feels like 4 losses in one day? Or is there a reason to hit a panic button? I'm just kind of curious as to where you are, 2 days after, this loss, where you had time to sit back and relax and think about it.
I'll start off by saying that over the course of the next hour, I've got a batch of hot takes.
Okay.
I've got overreactions, and then more overreactions, and then more overreactions.
Nice.
But in terms of whether or not everybody should be freaking out and panicking, probably not. I think there's a lot of ways to view what happened on Saturday, and I think it leads to a real frustrating place, because you can look at what happened on Saturday and said, you're upside down on the turnover margin, 4-0 if you do include the 1 turnover on downs, tons of penalties. I'm not quite sure that half the team showed up defensively and offensively. Your lines get pushed around. I think there was coaching malpractice that took place at a variety of times in that game on the Texas side of things. And yet you're up by 3 with a minute to go in the game. And at worst, you should be going to overtime. So it's funny because I was listening to you right before I came on, and it was like, you don't feel like you can come right out and say that Texas is better than Oklahoma. They certainly weren't better than Oklahoma on Saturday. But I think you could absolutely make a case that if those two teams played 10 times on that neutral field, that Texas would win the majority of those games. And I think the fact that they nearly won that game with so much, not just going wrong or against them, but they inflicted so much of their own damage against them. Now, the question is, and one of the things that we'll have to kind of work our way through, not just today, but in future weeks and in future games, there's no assurance that the things that happened on Saturday wouldn't happen again in future games. And I think that's one of the things that is a cloud that looms over this team and this program a little bit coming out of this game. You still can't completely trust them. You still can't completely trust that in the biggest games, everybody will show up, everybody will perform. And look, I think they lost that game as much because of Steve Sarkisian on Saturday as anything else. I think you can look directly at a number of areas where his fingerprints were on mistakes. And I don't know that if and when these two teams meet again in December, I don't know what version of Steve Sarkisian you're going to get. But in close games where game management, clock skills, thinking 4 steps ahead of what the current play is, one of my hot takes today is Steve Sarkisian has got to be a lot better. Oklahoma never should have been in a position to have a minute 17 left on the clock to go down and either get a tying score or the winning score. And the fact that they did centers back around this notion that Steve Sarkisian isn't good at game management. And we see a little bit of that every week. It was just a week ago against Kansas where late in the first half, they've got 3 timeouts and they're driving to get more points. And somehow the first half ends with them teetering, in scoring position. And somehow they go into halftime with all 3 timeouts, which would be great if it meant you got to come out into the second half with 6 timeouts. But since they don't let you otherwise use those, it's just a constant running theme. And I thought the way that he handled the offense and game management throughout the game in the first half, player usage, and then certainly from a strategic standpoint late in the game, I thought he was every bit as much a problem as the offensive line, and the defensive line's getting pushed around, as the turnovers. It was messy from top to bottom on Saturday, and a team is a reflection of its head coach. And I thought Steve Sarkisian was pretty messy on Saturday, and yet they still almost won the game. So for me, if you're Texas, I think you feel like, well, look, God, if you just clean up a little bit of that stuff, maybe not leave 14 points on the field, like maybe, and it might have even been more. Like I haven't actually stopped to count them all, but Jaron Thompson drops an interception. The Longhorns get stuffed on the 1 yard line. There's 10 right there. And that doesn't even get into, again, some of the personnel issues and decisions that Sarkisian made that I think proved problematic, that cost the team more points throughout the game. So there's a lot to unpack, but it's not time to panic. But I also think in not panicking, everybody needs to realize what happened on Saturday from an issue standpoint doesn't just disappear because.
Well, two things, Ketch. Somebody texted me over the weekend and said, well, he goes, Texas had 5 turnovers. And it said and not just 3, by the way. He goes, there's a turnover on the 1 by not being able to run that in. He goes, and then, of course, there's a turnover with running into the kicker. He goes, any coach would add that into their turnover margin. So he goes, you could say 3, but he goes, any coach would tell you that's basically a turnover, and that's how coaches would view that in their mind.
I mean, they lost the ball. So yeah.
So they're like, you can say 3, but it's technically 5, when it's all said and done. I want to unpack a little bit, Ketch, on when you say it's Sark and you talk time management. Give me what you saw and on for the time management thing when you start saying like you should have never had the opportunity to score at the end. For those who hadn't read anything that you wrote over the weekend, give us the understanding of that.
Well, let's go back to the first half first and foremost. Late in the first half, one of the things that if you're Texas, you needed to keep in mind was that Oklahoma had the ball first in the second half. So I thought, when Texas ends up tying the game 17-17, you're in a situation where I think you would have wanted to try to run a little bit more clock there. But what was really interesting about what happened at the end of the first half was Venables did the thing, and some would go back and say that it ended up costing Venables because they ended up having to take 3 instead of 7 at the end of the drive. But his mentality, I'm going to point to, and then we'll leap ahead to the second half in a little bit. But as Oklahoma's going down in the last drive of the first half, and I don't have like the play sheet in front of me, the exact plays, but there gets to be a point where they get to about the 35-yard line. And one of the things that Venables does is he's going to make sure that this is the last drive of the half. Like that was absolute. They're going to have the ball last. They're not going to score too quickly and take away from the advantage that Oklahoma has with the timing of getting the last possession, because Texas ties it up 17-17.
Yes, and I got the drive sheet in front of me, by the way.
And one of the things we were talking about on the watch along was that Texas needed to be sensitive to what was happening with the clock, because there was a chance that if everything goes against them, they go 17-17 and they don't get the ball back until they're down 31-17. That's the worst case example, right? If they'd scored 2 touchdowns on both of those drives. In the end, they scored 10. But as Oklahoma's driving there late in the first half, Venables runs a bit of a wasted play. It wasn't designed to do anything other than to take the air out of the balloon with regards to how much time was left on the clock. He gets to about the 30, to about the 35. Again, I'm not looking at the play sheet, so I can't exactly remember, but he runs the ball, and that run play almost takes like a minute off the clock. Like in running that play, it basically leaves them with, we're going to have the ball last in the first quarter, no matter what happens. He's thinking ahead. He's thinking about how this half is going to end. He's thinking about, and again, I think they almost took too much time left off the clock. They probably should have scored 7. They had a walk-in touchdown and both a bad throw and not a clean catch left them with 2 seconds where they end up taking the 3 when they probably should have had 7. But Venables is approaching that drive and how he's handling the clock. He's going to make sure that they have the ball last. If you flash forward to the end of the game in the second half, Texas gets the ball back with 4 minutes. They get the ball back, I think, at their own 13-yard line. So
correct.
There are 3
at 4:49. At 4:49, by the way.
There's 4:49 left on the clock. It's a tie game. There's got to be 3 objectives going into that drive. First and foremost, the number 1 objective, got to get a couple of first downs and flip the field position at worst, right? So the one thing you can't do in that situation going in, can't go 3 and out, can't punt here now with when they would be getting the ball back, say, with less than 4 minutes on a short field. So first and foremost, Texas got to get a couple of first downs, change the field position so that if they don't score on this drive, they've at least flipped field position and they're going to make it hard for Oklahoma to go down and potentially get a game-winning field goal. Texas accomplishes that. In fact, Texas accomplishes it pretty easily. Once they get to midfield, Texas found themselves into a position where the next 2 goals needed to be woven together. Number 1, score points on this drive, take the lead. Number 2, do not leave Oklahoma anytime to return serve, to get into a position to kick a field goal. The idea that they would score a touchdown never even crossed my mind. I never once thought when they were kicking off at 117 that they would score 7. The thought was they've got plenty of time now to get 3. But when Texas has the ball, as they're running up tempo, Sarkisian has to be thinking, this is what good coaches do, by the way. This isn't second guessing. This isn't hindsight is 2020. This is literally what we were talking about on the watch along as the drive was ongoing. You have to know that part of your objective is, even if you don't get points, if you take the air out of the ball, if you run clock, the worst thing that happens is that you go to overtime. Worst thing. Texas, on 4 consecutive plays, as that drive got across midfield, ran the ball and snapped the ball on 4 consecutive plays. They snapped it like with 28 seconds and another 28 seconds and 26 seconds. A total of 141 could have been milked off the clock that Texas gave 0 thought towards doing. And not being as concerned about what happens next as what happens in the moment, Texas found themselves into a position where you think about that 3rd and 9, part of the reason why, so Sark has 2 reasons for running the ball on 3rd and 9.
3rd and 10.
3rd and 10. Okay. Number 1, he wants to pick up enough yards that it makes a field goal easier, more in Bert Auburn's range. But number 2, he wants Oklahoma to use its final timeout. I mean, that is the 2 things that occurred on that play that Sarkisian achieved was making OU use their final timeout so that when they got the ball back, they would have none. And he wanted to get the ball a little closer, although Auburn ends up making that kick by 10 yards. I mean, he crushes the ball. Distance wasn't really an issue. And running the ball in that situation, in part to lure Oklahoma to use its final timeout, it is an acknowledgement that making Oklahoma use its timeout and running as much clock as possible was paramount to what was taking place. The problem is you can't wait until 3rd and 10 to think that way. If Texas you can still go up tempo, right? You can rush up to the line of scrimmage and keep the other team from being able to substitute. You can run up tempo and still take time off the clock. Texas didn't decide that running clock, in addition to trying to move into a position to score, was important until it was 3rd and 10. Until at the very last moment, Sarkisian looks at the clock and goes, oh, probably should try to take a timeout, probably should try to think about that as well. OU having a minute 17 to respond to the Texas field goal is completely on Sark. And this isn't rocket science. Again, this isn't, and these are issues that come up all the time. Literally, the game before, Sark mismanaging clock management and game management at the end of a half. It is a thing with Sark. It's not the thing. He's so good at a lot of things. But not being good at game management and counting, it's a thing that I got on Charlie about all the time. You got to be able to count in intervals of 40. Well, if you're Sarkisian, you've got to be able to be a play caller and a game manager at the same time. And there had to be a point in that drive where Texas became sensitive to how much time was either left or not left. And Texas waited way too long before it started thinking that way. And considering your quarterback in the second half had completed all but 2 passes, considering the game that Jonathan Brooks was having, it stands to reason, had they slowed down, that they still would have been able to achieve success on offense. And look, again, worst case scenario, you slow down, you run 2 minutes off the clock, your drive bogs down, you go to overtime. What cannot happen is that you forget the role that the clock plays in the game and only think about it at the end. It's not an accident that Oklahoma gets the ball back with a minute 17. If on just one of those plays, one play, they had waited until the end of the play clock to snap it, just one time, then Oklahoma at best gets the ball back with about 45 seconds left. At best. Had they done it twice, now your drive is ending as the game is ending. And if Auburn makes the field goal, there's no time to respond. And if Auburn misses the field goal, you're going to overtime. The only way to come out of that situation the way that Texas did was a little bit of coaching malpractice.
All right, we got some super chats that have come in, Ketch, and then we'll get back to all the things that you said. But looks like Barbs10 said, here's to a long day of hot takes, and I'm here for it. Appreciate you, fellas. UT walked through that game and almost bumped into a W, Ketch. I mean, I guess that somewhat is accurate to a certain, to a certain degree. Yes, I don't know. Sleptwalk, I don't know, Ketch, because the offense didn't seem like they were sleeping, but the defense definitely had some issues. That's for sure.
It felt like urgency was an issue all day.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly on defense. You're right. I think the offense didn't always execute perfectly. The turnovers, an example of that, but I never felt like their urgency or want to was an issue. Defensively, I thought a lot of those guys looked like they were playing on Ambien. I mean, it would make as much sense that someone drugged them than what actually happened on the field, where I can't explain the way some of those guys played. I can't explain Jalen Ford and the performance on Saturday. I can't explain he being in a one-on-one situation with Dylan Gabriel and being left so flat-footed that he doesn't even stick his arms out to make a tackle on what ends up being a long run. He just got run by. Like, those things never happen, and they happened a lot on Saturday.
We had another super chat that came in as well from Buck Wild Longhorn, one of you guys' favorites, obviously on House Divided. He goes, I'm going to lose my blank if Sark says they showed us things we hadn't seen. I'm getting real tired of that excuse. You think we're going to hear that today, Ketch, when Sark speaks to media at 11?
I think there's a good chance we do. And the reason why is OU did show Texas some stuff that they hadn't seen before. The Dylan Gabriel enters that game. That's crazy. He enters the game having rushed for 95 yards in 5 games and averaging 3.3 yards per carry in 5 games. He simply had not been a threat to run the ball much all season long. When they get into the red zone, yes. I mean, he's a guy that will score touchdowns when they start running more quarterback leads, quarterback draws, quarterback power game once they get inside the 10, inside the 5-yard line. You saw it early in the game, right? I mean, the first time we see Dylan Gabriel as a runner, they get inside the red zone. Texas tries to blitz from the outside. Wrong time, wrong place for that call, because they run their pressure from the outside from the opposite direction of what ended up being a quarterback power run to the other direction, which left Jalen Ford in a position where he was the only guy in a position to stop Gabriel. He got blocked. Great job by the offensive lineman for Oklahoma, by the way, to get to the second level and get on Ford. It's one of the toughest things for an offensive lineman to do, is to not just get to the second level, but then to get a body on a guy like Jalen Ford. We saw that quarterback run early in the game, but on the whole, Gabriel averages 8.1 yards per carry. He rushes for 113 yards. That's more than all the rest of the yardage that he had rushed for in 5 combined games. So the quarterback run in Gabriel's legs was a little bit of a new thing. I can't believe that Texas was never able to adjust to this one thing. A lot of it was about tackling. Texas tackled as poorly Saturday as they have all season long.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Gabriel is he did nothing in the passing game that was surprising. Going into that final drive, he was 19 of 34 for 227, no touchdowns, no picks, a 111.96 passer rating. He, as a passer, he was way below as good as he can be. And he played in line with the numbers that we talked about all week long. When he plays good team, his passing numbers aren't great. Even in going 4 for 4 for 58 yards on the final drive, his final passer rating was a 132, 30 points below Quinn Ewers, who had 2 interceptions. Like, Texas, one of my other hot takes is that Texas defense wasn't as bad, despite a lot of things going wrong for it. It wasn't a terrible defensive performance. They allow a touchdown. And if you look at the second half, they allow a touchdown on the first drive. But then they pretty much shut Oklahoma's offense down until there's 1:17 left to go in the game. They did some good, but too many players, especially on the defensive line and at linebacker, didn't show up. I think the secondary could have tackled better, but in terms of pass defense, I thought the secondary played pretty well. They didn't give up big plays. They turned Gabriel into an inefficient passer, and yet they still found a way to lose because they never made the adjustment that once the passing game was shut down, that they would use Gabriel's legs. And then when they were in a position to make plays, they didn't.
Well, yeah, that final drive obviously is the cherry on top as far as not making plays in the secondary, right? So,
I mean, OU could have gone against air and not found it as easy as they did with 11 men on the field on that final drive.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because as you talk about a runner perspective, I was looking it up while we're talking. I mean, Jalen, Milroe, when they face him, Ketch, I mean, he rushes 15 times for 78 yards and an average of 2.9 per carry. So, I mean, You would not have put going into this game Dylan Gabriel ahead of Jalen Milroe as a runner.
The difference is they respected Milroe's legs. And so Anthony Hill was a spy in that game for 60 minutes. And that's one of the reasons why Milroe never completely got on track as a runner. Texas never spied Gabriel. And look, I don't know if it's the right move to do so or not, because if you spy Gabriel, and nothing Gabriel had done before the game suggested a spy was necessary.
Sure.
And to put a spy on Gabriel puts one less guy in pass defense. And maybe that's just a concession that Texas felt like they couldn't make. But if you're not going to make that, then you have to tackle well. And your head, as all 11 guys' heads need to be on a swivel about the quarterback. Hey, guys, we can't spy. That means everybody's got to tighten up a little bit, and you got to be a little bit more on your toes if you're a rush end, because containment, too often they weren't getting pressure, but they also weren't keeping containment, which is, God, that's like the worst of both worlds. It's like, well, your ends aren't even getting close to touching the guy, but at the same time, when things are breaking down, they're letting Gabriel get outside of them. And then your linebackers have to make tackles. There's even a play early in the game where Ford has on the play that Anthony Hill gets credit for a sack. Ford probably should have sacked him 5 yards further behind the line of scrimmage. He misses the play, and then Hill ends up escorting him out of bounds. Texas just didn't do any little things right defensively. They did a good job defending the pass, which almost certainly would have been their number one objective coming into the game. If I tell any of the members of the Texas coaching staff, when the game ends, Dylan Gabriel will be 23 of 38 for 285 and 1 touchdown and a 132 passer rating, they take that all day long. I can't imagine that if you told them that stat line, they probably think Oklahoma doesn't get to 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
The only touchdown pass of the game was the last throw of the game, his last pass. Up until then, he didn't make the big error, but he wasn't making the big play either. The only way he plays that way and you lose is if you give up a bunch of rushing yards, and they did, and you turn the ball over a bunch and maybe give up a big play on special teams. The one thing again, there were some things that Texas did that were a little uncharacteristic. Ewers throwing the interceptions. Hadn't really seen that from him, the way those plays unfolded all season long. But I will say this, while I'm nitpicking what Texas did, give Oklahoma a ton of credit.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, how much credit do you give them? Because you got, in order for those things to happen, you have to have a team that makes you look that kind of way, right?
Oklahoma
it didn't happen by accident.
Outplayed, out-prepared, out-hustled, out-wanted, out-executed, out-coached. All of those things happened. So kudos to Oklahoma. Again, that Texas was even in this game with all of those outs being considered is, I don't want to say it's a borderline miracle. I think it speaks to what the Texas skill talent on offense is capable of, right? I mean, all of this stuff was happening that wasn't good. But in the second half, Ewers, look, I call, when you and I did the post-game show, I said that Ewers was exceptional on the day. And that was a little bit of hyperbole. But in this, let me explain why I was so high on Ewers on a day where, to be fair, he turned the ball over 3 times. Number one, I didn't think any of the mistakes bothered him, and I was a little worried about that. I've seen quarterbacks in the Texas OU game make an early turnover, and it just, everything changes. Their brain gets scrambled. That didn't happen with Ewers. He responded incredibly well. The fact that he throws 2 interceptions and finishes the day with a 160.4 efficiency rating, better than Dylan Gabriel's numbers by a lot, says a lot about how well he played. In the final 3 quarters, Anwar. So forget about the first 15 minutes where he's 6 of 10 for 38 yards and 2 picks. That's an abomination. In the final 45 minutes, he's 25 of 27 for 308 yards and a 200.6 efficiency rating. When I talk about, because I think there will be some people who say, well, Ketch, if they don't go up tempo, it takes them out of what they did, and maybe they don't move the ball. 25 of 27 for 308 and a 200.6 game rating. Quinn Ewers has never been better as a quarterback than he was in the final 3 quarters of that game. And it's one of the reasons why, if you slow things down, put more on needing to take clock away from the game. We're going to have the ball with what they did against Alabama. We're getting the ball with 4 minutes and 49 seconds left, and we ain't giving it back. And we may not win this game in regulation, but they're not touching the ball again. When your quarterback is 25 of 27 over the final 3 quarters of the game, you got to trust that if you slow things down a little bit, it just doesn't ruin a performance where he's on a heater. 25 of 27. And if we go back and look at the 2 plays that were incompleted, one was the deep ball to Xavier Worthy that pass interference didn't get called on, which it absolutely should. And by no means am I saying that the officiating cost Texas the win. I know a lot of Texas fans had a grudge against the officials. I thought for the most part, the officials just flat out let them play. There was actually a play later in the game where Texas could have been called for pass interference and wasn't. So those 2 plays kind of washed themselves out. But I'm only pointing it out because he was 25 of 27, second, third, and fourth quarters. And one of those 2 incompletions shouldn't have even counted. It should have been pass interference. So what he really was in the fourth quarter, or second, third, and fourth quarters, was 25 of 26. If your quarterback's playing that well, you're playing not with one hand tied behind your back. You're playing with 3 or 4 hands. You don't have 2. You've got extra hands. And Sarkisian, again, I think he handled the clock management down the stretch and the game management like a guy who didn't know what he was working with.
Ketch, there's a couple other things, and it was good information there. I think you have another, what do we? I don't want to say gripe, but critique as relates to Sarkisian, and I think it seems it's Brooks and Baxter, right? That's another one for you where you feel like, hey, as much as, and you're a CJ Baxter fan, like that, let that be known, like that's been your guy for a while. That's been your guy going in, but going in for as far as this, you feel like Sark has got to give Brooks more touches than Baxter at this moment, right?
Sark's need. Look, I don't know what Sarkisian told CJ Baxter in recruiting, right? He's recruiting a 5-star. They lose their 2 running backs to the NFL. Bijan, not a senior, but they lose him and Roschon. I don't know what was promised in recruiting. I don't know what he told CJ Baxter before the season started when he made him the starter. But what I know is that Jonathan Brooks is the nation's second leading rusher. That's it. Jonathan Brooks is having an all-America season. Jonathan Brooks is having a year where at the end of it, if the season ended today, he would be a Doak Walker finalist. That's how good he's playing. And that's how good he was on Saturday, rushing for 129 yards. Look, Sark's got a Baxter thing. We've joked about it for weeks that you can, if you ask him about Jonathan Brooks, and what's funny is last Monday, he was asked a Jonathan Brooks question, and for the first time ever, he didn't mention CJ Baxter. He didn't say, yeah, no, he's playing really good, but oh, by the way, we can't forget about CJ Baxter. And I don't know the pressure dynamics behind the scenes. Does he think Baxter will transfer? I mean, it's got to be on the table to some extent in that if Brooks doesn't go pro after this season, he's a returning All-American. You can't take the job away from that guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know the dynamics that are in play, but what I know is this. In the second quarter of that game, when Jonathan Brooks at the time was actually averaging more than 6 yards per carry, and CJ Baxter was running at less than 3 yards per carry, as Texas is moving the ball, he's got it going. He takes Brooks out of the game. And look, and he never does this with his other skill positions. Worthy never comes off the field. Mitchell never comes off the field. If they're in a 3 wide receiver set, you can set your watch that Jordan Whittington is going to be on the field. Sanders never comes off the field. Gunnar Helm never comes off the field. Sark's not a rotation guy with his skill guys. And you know what? He wasn't all that much last year at running back either. There were a lot of games that ended where people were like, Roschon should have got the ball more. Like he needs to give Roschon more carries. And I was always a believer, give Bijan the ball as many times as you can give Bijan the ball without wearing that guy out like he doesn't have an NFL career in front of him. But twice in that game, Texas had drives that get into the Oklahoma territory, partly created by Jonathan Brooks. And he takes Brooks out to get Baxter in. And at one point in the second quarter, the carries were fairly even. And both times they put Baxter into the game, it helped stall the drive out. That's not an opinion. That's what happened on I'm trying to remember the numbers. He gets 2 carries on a drive in the first half that ends up leading to a field goal, but the offense bogs down. But even more egregious was in the third quarter when they were behind and chasing the game. And the thing is, when Baxter comes into the game, and I thought Oklahoma knew Texas's tendencies all year long. Sarkisian's done a pretty good job of masking his trends. A lot of coaches I've even read in articles in The Athletic and articles on ESPN, and coaches are coming out and saying Sarkisian's done a great job of masking tendencies. But one of their tendencies is that when Baxter comes into the game, more times than not, they're running the football. And in the third quarter, when Texas had it going and they were on a drive and you keep your best players on the field, he puts in a running back that's averaging 2.5 yards per carry. Oklahoma sees Baxter coming into the game. They crowd the box. They put more men in the box. They absolutely believe that a run play to Baxter is coming, and they run for -1 yards on back-to-back carries. First play loses -4. So then Texas is in a 2nd and 14 situation. And they ran it with Baxter again. And for the first time this season, the Baxter thing really cost Texas in that game. They left points on the field in part because come hell or high water, CJ Baxter is going to be a primary piece of the offensive game plan, whether or not they have the second leading rusher in the country or not. And it cost them. Texas left so many points on the board. I mentioned they leave points on the board when Jaron Thompson drops an interception in the back of the end zone. He's a senior, man. He's started over 30 games. You got to make that play. Got to. Because in not making that play, that was 3 points. You left 7 points on the board. We haven't even gotten to what happened along the goal line when we talk about Sarkisian's role in this game. There's 10. And you had 2 other drives that didn't end in touchdowns, that ended in field goals. Almost, I'm not like blaming Baxter. It's not his fault. But in putting Baxter in the game in drives where you're moving the ball and then the offense immediately shuts down, that's poor roster management in the middle of the game. Look, there are some games when these guys can have equal carries. In the OU game, when you have arguably the best running back in the country based on what's happened through the first half of this season, and you're taking him out because you're committed to giving a player who averages less than half the yards that he's averaging per rush. What are you doing? John Tate Cook is better than CJ Baxter. He didn't play in the game on Saturday. He didn't get reps. They didn't take Xavier Worthy out of the game to get John Tate Cook some snaps. Adonai Mitchell was loafing through plays, and they didn't take him out of the game to put John Tate Cook on the field. Jonathan Brooks is rolling, and you're behind on the scoreboard, and you stalled out drives out of your need to get CJ Baxter involved in the game because you convinced yourself in the summer that he's your best guy. He starts against Alabama despite getting hurt in the opener because Sarkisian is convinced that Baxter is better. But the actual evidence of what's taken place this season is that Jonathan Brooks has been better than everybody.
Better than most people in the country.
Yes, not just better than Baxter, better than everybody. And he would lead the nation in rushing right now had he not had the carries in the first two games been so evenly split. You know, Brooks doesn't break 60 yards in the first two games. It's a little bit like the Deontay Foreman thing, Anwar.
Yeah.
Where Foreman has this magical breakout season, but it only happens when Chris Warren gets hurt.
Correct.
And then it was like, well, I guess we've got to give the ball to Deontay Foreman. And then he explodes. This Jonathan Brooks formation, this explosion by Brooks has happened on accident. This is not what Steve Sarkisian thought would happen at all.
No, because he had CJ as his number one back.
And
So
even when
clearly-
Brooks was cooking a couple of weeks ago, he went out of his way to say, Baxter's our lead back. And he was like, kudos to Brooks for like stepping it up, considering the circumstances where he was the backup. And the thing is, all of the evidence through half a season says that, boy, you need to ride the Brooks train until that engine gives out because he's been spectacular. But Sarkisian's confirmation bias towards Baxter and what he thinks Baxter is or should be, on Saturday, it cost this team. And it hadn't all season long. It was a little bit of a running joke because it wasn't hurting the team that you're constantly trying to get Baxter re-involved in the offense. On Saturday, in a really tight game, you could argue that Jonathan Brooks has been the best player on this team. You could. I mean, it's either a conversation of him, Tavondre Sweat. That might be it. He's the second leading rusher in the country. Like, at his position, at worst, he's number 2. So I'm bewildered at having a player perform so well and going out of your way to try to make the other thing work. Anyway, I apologize for that little bit of I honestly wasn't sure where you were going with that, but once you said it out loud, I was like, oh, you're going to let me do this little bit because I got that. But the thing is, of all of the things that ended up happening in the game, those mistakes by Sark, I think, pale behind some of the other mistakes by Sark. It speaks to the volume of mistakes that I think Sarkisian had. And look, nobody's going to want to hear this, and I apologize in advance. But when we talk about this team running the table, when we talk about this team, because it still has all of its objectives in theory in front of them. They run the table. They beat OU in the Big 12 championship game. They will at least be in the discussion for the playoff. Who knows? Maybe they end up being 5th and they get left out, but they're in whereabouts right there. The thing that you can't account for, I feel like in another Big 12, in another matchup against Oklahoma, I think the offensive line will play better. I think the defensive line will play better. I think Jalen Ford will play better. I think a lot of guys that were spectators on the field I think Adonai Mitchell will play better. Like, I think a lot of guys will play better. But I can't account for Sark. I cannot account for when the game starts. He is not a good game manager as a head coach. And when you get yourself in 50-50 games, and I think that's certainly a possibility should these two teams play again in December. I think I would pick Texas to win that game because, by God, they nearly won the game on Saturday with everything that they did wrong. But I cannot say with certainty that the coaching issues from Saturday won't be there the next time these two teams play. In games where the margins are big, when Texas beats teams by double digits, you don't notice these things as much. When you're in a one-score game, things like the clock matter, and it's not of all of Sarkisian's strengths, and boy, does he have a lot of them. I mean, I feel like we've been talking about game management for 3 years. This isn't a new conversation. It pops up a lot. Like I said, it literally happened the week before against Kansas. And the thing is, they beat the hell out of Kansas. So you don't pay a whole lot of, right? You sound like an asshole if after you blow a team out, you go back to the second quarter and go, how did they not use any timeouts on that final drive of the first half? Like, how did that happen? How do they go in with 3 timeouts? It's like, well, it was bad clock management, bad game management. Like, it's as simple as that. But when you win by a lot, those little details get overlooked. In close one-score games, they're everything. And I think they were everything on Saturday. And for all of the turnovers and the miscues and all the things that we want to point at, nothing cost this team more. They stole defeat from the jaws of victory because they have an opportunity to win that game and leave Oklahoma with no time to respond, and only through not having enough foresight to understand the importance of that a minute or two before he did. These things come down to slim margins, and you can't volunteer slim margins for the other team by your own doing on purpose.
Ketch, we are coming to the end, but we also have some super chats that we need to knock out because Sark is going to be going. So let's knock some of these out here. Shook Ones says, Saturday raised an eyebrow for me with Sark, awful clock management, and why recruit 5-star cornerbacks just to have them play 10 yards off the ball like OU has Tyreek Hill. Any thoughts on that? You've been talking about clock management for a while, so I don't think that's not raised an eyebrow for you. And people have not liked the that final possession of the prevent defense. That's been an issue for some folks.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they did a pretty good job in pass defense all day. It wasn't until the last drive of the game that they were truly abysmal. And they gave up a couple of shots, right? I mean, earlier in the game, that moment when Gabriel's hand's bleeding, he throws the deep ball that gets caught, and they had a little bit of success. I think the problem was Texas went into that last drive playing a little bit like they had all game long. They didn't make the adjustment to the game situation and how much time was left on the clock. What are the objectives? I think, again, it came to the devil's in the details. Them playing off as far back as they did clearly worked for large stretches of the game. I mean, Oklahoma, before that last drive, Oklahoma's sitting at 27 points, but 7 of those come on a short field. So really, you've done a pretty good job containing the OU offense for most of the game, not understanding game situation and what needed to not happen, I think was a big problem there. You have to be able to make a slight adjustment in that situation, and Texas didn't. And they were just giving Oklahoma so much space that Oklahoma's completing passes for huge chunks of yards without really anybody there to put a hand up to stop it. It wasn't ideal.
And this super chat is kind of along those same lines, but he said noticing a trend with PK's different defense, specifically a 2-minute defense at the end of the game, happened in Bama last year. Are they in the base prevent? There's something on film the OCs are seeing. Kind of along the same lines of the previous super chat. And yes, clearly it happened, right?
Well, and the thing is, if you struggle against the 2-minute offense, it stands to reason even more how sensitive you would be about the clock issue, that you wouldn't want to leave clock because it has been a problem area in the past. Mentioned in the Alabama game from a year ago, if you're Steve Sarkisian, that's where you really have to be on top of it. You have to be thinking, well, the way we're playing defense isn't conducive to stopping a 2-minute drill. So let's not put them in that position. Again, it is staggering to me that Sark really didn't think about clock until he got sacked. They get sacked on that first down play, which in that moment, the smart play, and this is not 2020 revisionist thinking, Anwar. I literally was talking about this in real time. Do you have the stat sheet in front of you? I know you got to go in a second, but
that's okay.
What was the down and distance situation on the sack that ultimately stalls out the drive that leads to the field goal? It's first and 10. The ball's like on 35-ish.
Hold on. Yeah. Hold on one second.
I know it's first and 10.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of where on the field, because they end up kicking the field goal because the drive stalls out, right? So they go first and 10. It was on the OU 35. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Yes, the 3-yard loss. Yes, first and 10, Oklahoma 35. Yes,
that's a run play. That's a run play to Jonathan Brooks. Has to be. Why? For the same reason that in the first half, in the same situation, Venables runs the ball on first and 10. You're trying to take time off the clock. When they're at first and 10 at the 35, they're in Auburn's field goal range.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters at that point, really, from that moment on is, hey, let's get a few more yards and let's run clock. And they needed to run the ball there and not pass it, if for no other reason, for all of the clock management stuff that I've talked about, Anwar.
Yeah.
If they run the ball there, let's say they pick up 2 yards with Jonathan Brooks, which he's averaging 6. Let's just give him 2. You run 40 seconds off the clock and you're in field goal range. And you know what? When you're in 3rd and 10 because you got sacked and you got your play calling went out of whack based on the situation in the game, they could have just run the ball. They could have run the ball 3 straight times, run almost the entire clock out. Venables uses his last time out. You've got 2 plays to run 1:30 off the clock. And Texas didn't. And this just isn't rocket science. This isn't Monday morning quarterbacking. If you've got half a football brain and you've watched football a long time, this stuff's like second nature. This is the stuff that you watch good coaches get right. And you know who used to get this stuff right 9 out of 10 times? Mac Brown. Now, there are infamous moments. He got clock management wrong in 2008 against Texas Tech, but more times than not, game management was Mac Brown's superpower. And it's kind of Steve Sarkisian's kryptonite.
Do we have one more super chat, Aaron? Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll call this one a day. It's from Colin Downs here. He goes, can we talk more about the poor pursuit from the defense? They looked like they were waiting on someone else to make a tackle. Would love to be in that meeting, Ketch.
I mean, they just didn't play well. It's staggering that they were even in this game, because you're hard-pressed to name on a couple of fingers defensive players that you thought played really well. I mean, Sweat is the only defensive lineman I think showed up. I thought Murphy no-showed. I thought Sorrell no-showed. I thought Ethan Burke was a spectator too often. None of the backup defensive linemen really made any plays. The linebackers were porous. The secondary, I thought, played pretty well. But other than that, man, it was bad. It was, again, kind of staggering that on the whole, they actually had done some good things against this OU offense, given that they didn't play well. I mean, as if I tell you that none of those guys show up, you probably think that Gabriel has a field day throwing the ball. Yeah, I do think we're gonna hear some version of we didn't expect Gabriel to do that in the run game. Now, the good news is in a rematch, you know what Oklahoma's capable of, right? I think they've got a sense for how to defend the OU passing game, as evidenced by 60 minutes of football, well, really 59 minutes of football, not the last 117, which technically was only 102 because they left 15 seconds on the clock. They left them so much time that OU was able to give Texas time. Yeah. But if you find a way to negate the Gabriel run game, you should be in a very good position in a rematch. If they can't keep Dylan Gabriel from running for more than 8 yards a carry in a rematch, they might lose that game too.
I did say, Aaron, are we good? We're caught up on the super chats. All right, Ketch. Last thought within a minute. Do you think at this moment there'll be a rematch?
Yeah.
Ketch? Okay, you're sold on a rematch in Arlington.
In fact, I think they can lose, and there still probably will be a rematch. They could be 10-2. The Big 12's trash, and if you're a Texas fan, don't sit around wondering what happens if West Virginia. There's a better chance that West Virginia goes 3-3 in their final 6 games than they run the table. Kansas is. I think they might be the 3rd best team in the conference, and. Yeah. You know, at some point, I think Kansas will lose another game. I think it's Texas and OU in the Big 12, and I think there absolutely will be a rematch.
All right, Ketch. House Divided will be coming up at noon to 3 o'clock. I'm sure you'll have way more to discuss, way more to Barry Sorrell, you're asking what was said about the D-line.
They didn't show up, Barry. I wish I could say they did. I love you, Barry, but they didn't perform on Saturday.
So check out the replay. He'll have more, obviously, at noon. Ketch, we got Sark in less than about an hour, so he probably will be on time today. As my guess, you're probably a little bit less on his plate. So I'm going to run from Cedar Park down there. Check out Jeff Ketchum and get the rest of his thoughts on this game, what Sarkisian says. And I know he'll expand a lot more on his show and break down everything, not only from this game, from his 10 thoughts from the weekend, which has Orange Bloods on fire right now. How many pages in are we on your column, Ketch? Are we about 15 pages of comments in so far?
Oh, God, I don't know.
No, let me see. Let me hit the refresh on it.
12,
which is that's fire at this moment. So, all right, guys, that was Overreaction Monday. Make sure you check out rogueshop.com. Use that promo code orangebloods.com for Jeff Ketchum, for Aaron Little, who's producing behind the scenes. Thank you for checking out Overreaction Monday, and we will see you guys next week. Everyone.